Get closer. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Roundtable with Brian Zimmerman. And I'm Sarah Blessing. And today we were talking about you joining the 5th Special Forces Group and getting deployed, and everything happens pretty quickly. I'm really excited to find out about your journey. Thanks for doing this with us at Project Next. And thanks for watching, you all. Let's get into it. How are you doing today? Brian, how's it going?
Yeah, doing really good today. It's beautiful out. The weather's amazing. Kind of expecting it to be a little hotter right now going into May, but it's been absolutely beautiful.
It's gonna be hot today. I think it's in the 80s.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so doing good. Yeah.
And I hope everybody had a nice weekend. Last Monday, it was pretty fascinating. We were talking about all of the training that you underwent. So if you want to hear that episode, just look back to last week's episode. And so you had some really intense training, and it was kind of hard for you to focus on your personal life because you're just trying to survive Special Forces training and become a Green Beret, and people are getting cut and only a few people make it. So you're really driven to do that, but you've pretty much succeeded. You've become a Special Forces Green Beret, and now you're going to meet your 5th group.
Yeah,
which I feel like 5th group's famous because I've been reading the book Masters of Chaos, which I finally learned the name of. And they talk about 5th Special Forces all the time. And those people are badass, amazing people, doing really, really hard missions. So I cannot wait to hear about your journey. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get started.
Okay. So quick skim the surface. If you missed last week, I was talking about the Q course, and it was challenging. It was very challenging, but so I've graduated SEER, the survival course that's required, and after that I've out processed, and now I'm on my way to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, to join the 5th Special Forces Group. And to say that it's a little nerve-wracking to be anyone going to their first unit station is going to be kind of a nerve-wracking period of time. For me, going to the 5th Special Forces Group, I already knew that we were in Afghanistan, and we were in Iraq, and I don't think that I realized how much was in front of me, but it was enough for me to be a little nervous on the way to Fort Campbell.
I bet all of the people doing that were pretty nervous because big change. You worked so hard to reach this goal, and then you finally got the goal, and it's like, oh, what's next?
Right. Yeah. We worked so hard to attain the most basic level of being a special operator. I use that term loosely. Because I really feel like I didn't get my education until I got to my team. I got to 5th group. So it was...
Well, you had all this knowledge on what to do. Probably a bunch of it you didn't need, and then some of it you did need. And now you're going to start applying that knowledge and that training, right?
In combat.
Yeah. And I bet it was interesting meeting these people, which you're friends with them now, right? Some of them now. Yeah. I really excited about hearing about that part.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so you get there, do you meet your team? Do you meet the 5th Special Forces team? What happens?
So I thought that that's what was going to happen, but that's not what happened at all. I actually showed up, and the group sergeant major, he decides where guys go, and I ended up going to 1st Battalion. Well, 1st Battalion was forward. They were in Iraq at that time. So my entire company, they were gone. No one was there. I showed up to the B team, and there was one guy in there. It's like, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I'm here reporting into he's like, yeah, that's great. Give me your paperwork, blah, blah, blah. I gave him the paperwork. He's like, he hands me some paperwork, get these signatures, blah, blah, blah. Get this back to me as soon as you can. Maybe this afternoon. It was like this 3 or 4 pages worth of signatures. I had to go around and check into all the different shops and things like that. And, meet with the battalion sergeant major who wasn't even there. He was forward in Iraq. And so I just kind of got that. It was, 8:47 in the morning. And I thought, well, okay.
Big deal to you, regular day of work for the military.
Big day. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I show up, I'm this new guy, but the first one on there was supply. Everyone in the military knows that supply, that's where you go to get all of your gear that you're issued and all of those things. And so I thought, okay, well, I'd probably need some stuff, so I'll just go over there. Went over there, gave them the paperwork. They bring this massive bag of all of this, what I thought was this Gucci equipment, Oakley this, Oakley that. um, yeah, it was amazing.
That's funny. I would not have thought of that at all.
Yeah. Oh, it was not quite what I expected. So I was able to get all that stuff, that the stuff that I could knock out, I was able to get that knocked out and turn back in later on that afternoon. And so it was kind of almost official at that point. Yeah. So, but then a couple days later, I hadn't jumped in 3 months, which you're supposed to jump quarterly every year.
Jump out of an airplane, skydive
Yeah. At that time, I was only static line qualified. I was nowhere near.
What does that mean?
Military.
Static line qualified?
Static line is when you hook an anchor line, or you hook a static line up to an anchor line cable. And when you exit the aircraft, it pulls your parachute out for you
I've seen that
at
before.
about 2,000 feet.
Okay.
So much scarier than jumping from 20,000. Much scarier.
Really?
Yeah, for me it is. And
It all sounds scary to me.
it was, so yeah, I get on that jump, I jump, I do what it is I'm supposed to do. And then a week later, fifth group had implemented a training course for new operators to come in. They had recognized that it was going to be maybe a little overwhelming, even for guys coming in off the X-ray program, to integrate quickly into the combat situation. So they implemented the new operator training course. Everything that you can think of, A to Z, that's what we covered: machine guns, driving, CQB, close quarter battle, long range engagement, communications, setting up radios, loading your own radio, medicine, self-care, that kind of stuff. It was a lot. It was a week long, and it was definitely mouth wrapped around the fire hose.
Too much information.
Not just, it was all needed information, very much so. So yeah, so I did that. A week later, I came home and was because I had been told, yeah, you're leaving for Iraq in 2 weeks. You're going to meet up with your team downrange. So
now, when did you find out you were going to be leaving in 2 weeks? Did you think you were going to come down and stay there for a little while, or did you figure it was going to be quick to?
My assumption was that I would show up, I would meet my team, and the phase of being the new guy on a detachment would begin, which we had heard horror stories. Guys show up brand new. You've got all these senior guys. You're an 18 X-ray. You didn't spend any time in the regular Army, so there's quite a bit of animosity with some
Special
people.
Forces baby, right?
SF baby, yeah. So, yeah, so I kind of anticipated that. But when I found out that I was going to Iraq to meet my team, I was like, oh, wow. So I show up to my group. There's no one there. They tell me I'm leaving for Iraq in 3 weeks or a month later, and you're going to meet up with your team, and you're supposed to be a valued asset on a team right off the bat. So
you're going to a team, you're brand new in the military, and you're not going to get to meet them ahead of time and get initiated or whatever the intensity would be. You just are going there.
Yeah.
So I would imagine you were feeling nervous, or just because you're trying to predict what's going to happen, and then you find out, all your predictions are wrong. So what's your mental state at this point?
My mental state at that point, I wasn't drinking heavily. It was more of a social type drinking. But when I came home that week, a cousin of mine was getting married, but there were also some friends of mine that I hadn't seen since I graduated high school. And so we got together, and had some drinks, and stayed over at his house, and it was great. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm on my way home, and I get pulled over and taken to jail.
What?
So I go to jail. I get booked here in Harrison County for suspicion of driving while intoxicated. And it was, I was like, this is not good. This is, my wife at the time, that was quite the phone call. It was, but my point is, I was starting already that spiral. It was wide. It was a wide spiral at the start, but it was showing itself already.
Where like you couldn't handle coming home. You could handle being there doing the special forces job, but when you had to come home and wait for your next thing, you didn't know how to handle the emotions that you were feeling, so you wanted to kind of cover them up.
The amount of stress that you're under prior to leaving for a deployment, uh, any deployment, but your first deployment leading up to that period of time, it's it's nerve wracking to say the least. I don't care who you are. You excited to go to the military. You go in to go to war, to do the hardest man on earth. When he's told it's time for him to go to war, it's a little thing starts creeping in, and it's like, oh, my
Like this is
my
real.
vulnerability, y- y- I'm not Superman. That
Yeah,
thing started.
you're just human.
I could die. This is
Yeah,
real.
yeah.
This is 2005 Iraq.
That's what I was going to ask. 2005.
So
Wow. And this isn't a time period where men are really openly sharing their thoughts and feelings. It's not like you could go to a group and be like, guys, I'm scared to go to war. I'm scared for my life. There was no like, you didn't have the tools to do that, nor was there a bunch of places you could go, right? To openly
not
talk
that
about
I
your
knew.
feelings.
I
Yeah.
mean, not that I
How
was
old were you in
aware of.
2005?
In 2000, let's see. Wow, I was 28. I was 28. So, but the stress, I think, was starting to build. I just didn't see it. I didn't have the tools to recognize that that's what
You're just trying to
that
survive
was.
too. Well, for so long, you were just trying to make it as a Special Forces Green Beret. That was your goal for a very long time. And then very quickly it switches and boom, now you're going to war. You don't know your team. You don't know whether they're going to be nice to you, accepting. You don't know whether the training worked and you have the skills necessary to do your missions. I mean, I cannot imagine the anxiety, the fear, just the apprehension. So it makes sense that things were rough when you came home and that happened. Okay, so
Yeah,
keep going. That sounds very stressful.
it was stressful. And my wife at the time, we had already gone through some issues where she had had a couple of
No,
miscarriages.
I'm so
She
sorry.
was away from her family. She's a very family oriented person. And it was really starting to test the faith of the marriage already at the beginning, like that.
How
So
long had you been married?
we'd been married for almost a year, maybe a year.
And it sounds like an intense year to be married with you going through all
Very
of this.
intense, very intense year. So that, I was already not in a good mind space with on the family side, because all I had been thinking about was not just making the training, but excelling. It's not acceptable to just do the basic, to just be that basic. Well, I just passed. That's not
Right.
acceptable. And that you need to be excelling at what it is you're being taught and what you're doing. So fast forward, I go to jail. Spend the night or not the night, but 6 hours in the drunk tank. And then I get out, I go to the wedding, we go back. And of course, at the time in 2005, getting a DUI in the military, it wasn't anything what it is like now. A DUI, if someone were to get a DUI right now in the military, it's a career ender. You're done. Whereas, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you get a DUI, it's more welcome to the club. You got that out of the way, sweep that under the rug.
Oh, wow.
Don't do that again. If you're gonna drink in the team room, or what's
Yeah.
just
Don't drink and drive.
so. um it wasn't severe at all. I came back, I stood in front of the judge, I had my uniform on, I was 3 days away from deploying, and so it kind of set me apart from the other people that were sitting there waiting to
Right.
come up and stand before
You're
the
going to go
judge.
be in war and try
You
to
know,
defend our
I
freedom.
stood up and I said, yeah, I made a mistake. It's my fault. What do I need to do to correct this? Just like I'm getting ready to go to Iraq in 3 days. And he was like, wait, you're going to Iraq in 3 days? And so that kind of turned the, that kind of turned it around a little bit. So yeah, got that knocked out. Uh, wow.
Sounds humbling.
Wow. It was. And I really wish I'd have paid more attention to the lesson that taught me. It would have saved me a lot of grief.
Yes, I agree with that. I understand why you didn't, just because of how stressful your life was and you were about ready to go to war. It was, you weren't really thinking about you or your needs. You're thinking about surviving this new chapter that you've just done intense training for and going to war. So,
Yeah.
so I can see, I just have so much empathy because I care about you as a friend,
Right.
but I can see your side. If I were
Right.
you, I would feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're good.
Everyone
We know
deals-
that you had rough times later on. So yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Everyone deals with stress in different ways. And it's interesting to see how it has affected me, like how I deal with stress now that I have the tools to know how to manage that versus that kid who was still trying to figure it out. So I get back to fifth group and getting ready to deploy. And the veterans out there, I think they'll agree with me. In the 2 or 3 days leading up to deployment, it's very I would say somewhat spiritual, even though you may not think what's happening is spiritual, because you're recognizing the vulnerability, the true vulnerability. You've seen the commercials, you've seen all that, what's going on over there, and this is happening. You are going to a place that you may come home from only in a box.
Now, for those of you that are young and don't remember this was so different from the last few years. In 2005, when it was on TV, it's on the news. You're seeing who is dying, who's coming home in a box. You're seeing a lot of just terrifying things. The majority of Americans are very aware of this war. So that means you are very aware of what you're going into, and everybody's feeling it. We're all feeling the stresses and pressures of 9/11, what happened after 9/11, and these wars. It's just a different time period. We didn't have all the social media things that we have now, where there's just multiple places and multiple things, and you might follow down a rabbit hole of something. We're all following this war, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not big in the military, but I can remember just seeing so much of this on the news.
It was every day on the news, almost every hour. So it was a constant reminder of your mortality. All of us, I would say, as Americans, of just how susceptible we are. We'd had 9/11, that showed us how susceptible we were. Seeing soldiers, kids, going over there, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, they graduate from, I had several guys in my basic training class, they went to their unit, a month later they deployed, and 6 months later they were dead.
Oh, wow.
And that was happening often. And so,
and they're just babies. I mean, as me being 44 and seeing the age of these young men, they're just kids still, I mean, they're
kids.
They're
kids,
adult kids, I guess. And it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. It was so. Long story longer, you realize your mortality, and you're starting to build this distance between yourself and your family, and because that impending day, hour, minute of when you say goodbye, and you don't know if that's going to be the last time you ever see that person. That is constantly building, almost to the point to where you're thinking, can we just get this over with? Just break that chain right now. And that's where I was at. That's
Like
where I
break the
got
chain of the family ties.
break the chain of feeling that it's time to go. I'm still here though. I need to go. I'm still, I'm still here. The sitting on the couch with the wife or the girlfriend or with the parents, and you're just, 11 o'clock, you're supposed to meet up at the company area to go over to the airfields. And you're just, every 5 minutes you're looking at the clock.
So you're just ready to
know,
go.
I'm ready to go, but there's that pulling. It's almost as if the deployment is pulling you away from your family and loved ones, familiarity. And I think veterans out there they'll understand what I'm saying.
It makes sense to me, but I've never heard of that before. Yeah, thanks for explaining that. Yeah, it makes sense. It's such a heavy weight you're carrying, waiting for this time to come.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
almost as you're waiting for this life to stop so that you can go do this other life that you've been trained to do, but you also really you have no idea what you're walking into, a lot of unknowns. So it's better to let me get to the unknowns so I can figure that out, because if I figure all this out and I do all that right, there's a better chance of me coming back to this life.
you're compartmentalizing
Bingo.
in order to survive,
Bingo.
because you're only human. You can only handle so much.
Mhm.
So let's just take away the family baggage of them loving me and worried about me dying. Let's just put that way in the back of my mind and not think
Yeah.
about it. And let's focus on the
Yeah.
mission at hand so that I can stay alive and come back to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
was
makes
the
sense.
that was the mindset then. And you'll see in future shows, I'm going to talk more about how that process changed for me
Yeah,
quite a bit. We'll get into that into future shows.
Interesting.
Deployments.
I can't wait.
So we finally, we get to about an hour before I'm supposed to be there, and I get a call, hey, the plane broke, pushing it to tomorrow. I'm like, what do you mean pushing it to tomorrow? I got to get out of here. I got to go now. He's like, I know, just this happens, but we're pushing it 24 hours because we got to make sure the plane's good.
I'm glad you weren't on a plane that had, broken parts on it.
That's pretty standard though.
Is it?
The aircraft, the C-140, I think so. Or is it? I think it was.
These are big planes.
Massive aircraft that were used in the 60s to transport troops to Vietnam. So these are old aircraft, massive aircraft. And that wasn't the first time over my career I would experience those aircraft breaking down. Generally in Rota, Spain, that's where they broke down. So 24 more hours of there's a release, but then there's we're gonna have to do this again. So it's tough. It was really tough. So we get to the next day. Everything goes as planned. My family has come down, mom and dad, and I get off the bus and I'm able to meet with them and talk to them at the airport. And after that, we hug, and there's really kind of just unless you're a mother, or maybe a sentimental, emotional wife, there's nothing to say. What do you say? Moms are going to cry. Wives are going to cry. Dad might cry, probably not. Sisters might cry. Brother won't cry. It's just, again, can we break this? I need to break this chain.
You can't be thinking about that. You're trying to stay alive. You're trying to stay alive. So you're pushing it back. Are you crying?
No, I don't. I wouldn't consider myself a big crier. I wish that I could be. I think it would be more emotionally healthy for me if I were able to do that more. But it was, let's break this and go. I was very empathetic towards my family. I wanted to support them, but there was also, it was almost as if the military, I had a harness on with a rope, and the army is just, slowly,
Right.
and everyone's and then there's that disconnect. So we leave and I say goodbye and get into the terminal, and we start getting ready to load the aircraft and punch out.
Do you immediately push your family out of your mind and just start thinking about where you're going, or are you thinking about them?
No, I was thinking about him nonstop. It
Oh,
was really difficult. And what's really strange, it was myself and one other guy, a really good friend of mine, Tim. He he it was just us and all this cargo that we were responsible
so
for.
you're shipping off to Iraq, and it's just one other person in the back with you and a bunch of cargo.
Right.
Wow,
Me and Tim, but we were really good friends.
that's not what I've
We went through
envisioned
the
at
E
all.
course together, and but that's how important, getting people over there to these teams, because teams were short people, and all of these supplies, all of that had to get there. It was very important that it got there. And so Tim and I, we were on this aircraft, this massive aircraft, responsible for a lot of the equipment that was on there. And at the time, all of the firearms, the AR-15s that were on teams and in the B team, they were all forward. So they actually had to send us to Iraq without weapons, without firearms, except for this load of Benelli shotguns, these brand new Benelli shotguns. That was it. That was what we had. That was our job, was to get those Benellis to the forward company area.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a lonely ride over there for Tim, but it was good for me, because Tim he had come from the regular military, and he had already been to Afghanistan, I
Oh,
think
wow.
twice, once or
Mhm.
twice. And so he and I were able to have some really good conversations about, this is what I experienced. You may experience this when you get to but
Oh, that's
it was
nice.
really, it was a godsend to have you. Tim Ambler, if you're listening, thanks, buddy.
That's nice.
So,
Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
um,
That's nice that he let you know, because you had so much uncertainty. So
yeah,
if you had to be on with one person, that's
yeah,
great that he was
it
willing to
was
tell
good.
you everything and try to help you out. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. And I think that was a long time ago. I think that's all correct. If it's incorrect, I'm sorry.
I know. Yeah, that is a long
There's
time ago.
some
Yeah.
pieces I might forget, or God forbid, hopefully I didn't inject anything.
I think we're gonna have some empathy for your situation, Brian. I'm just so appreciative you're telling us this story.
Huh.
Yeah, it's okay if some of the
Yeah.
memories are a little fuzzy.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
It
long
all
was the
starts to run together.
How long was the flight?
Well, so we flew from Fort Campbell. It was multiple different flights. So we fly up to Bangor, Maine, and then from there we went
Where's
to
Bangor,
Germany.
Maine?
It's way up. It's way up north, and uh, in Maine,
Oh,
Bangor.
okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so from there we flew to Germany. Germany, I think we may have stayed the night or two, because the plane broke. Plane broke, and so uh, from there, from Germany, we flew. I believe we flew to Kuwait. I'm pretty sure that's where we flew. And from Kuwait, we took a C-130 with some of that equipment that came off the aircraft we came in on. We took a C-130, just Tim and I. We flew into Baghdad.
Wow. So it's several days.
Yeah, it was 4 days. Yeah, 4 or 5 days before we finally got
So
there.
you really have a lot of time to think about what's about to
Yeah.
happen to you.
Oh yeah.
Right, too much
Yeah.
time for your preferences,
Yeah.
I would think.
They did. The docs gave us at the time uh, what was a popular sleeping aid to get to Iraq was Halcyon and Ambien.
I was gonna guess
And
Ambien.
and so yeah, that was, thank goodness for that. That helped transition.
Because it's probably hard to sleep when you're going through all this transition too.
It's hard to sleep. You weren't really,
Time zones are changing.
time zones are changing. Yeah. There's a
Wow.
lot going on.
This is fascinating. Okay, so you finally get to Baghdad. Then what happens?
So I've got to I want to just go ahead and make it really clear up front, before we start talking about deployments and things. I'm not on this show to talk about combat situations. I'm not here to talk. I'm not here to throw out all the gory details that it seems like, unfortunately, social media. That's what people gravitate to. Uh, so if that's what you want to see, there are plenty of videos.
There's lots of
on
shows. Yeah,
YouTube,
yeah.
shows. Uh, a gunfight is a gunfight is a gunfight. You know, it's tragic.
Are they all blurring together in your mind?
No, it's just that's not what I want.
Right.
That's
You don't
not
want
what
to
I
focus
want
on.
people to focus on. So
I think you
just to
want to
make that
tell us
clear
what
up
what
front.
it was like for you and your mental state and how you survived and what was healthy and what wasn't
Mhm.
healthy to try to help
Yeah.
people that are in similar situations, whether they've been in
Yes.
war or just at home, life is
Yes.
stressful.
Yes.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
That's what I want to
That's what
focus
I
on.
want to focus on too. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
The emotional trauma that things caused. We know what we know what the cause, or you know what the events are, an idea, you know, but I really want to get towards, okay, this is how I transition into really thinking positively, and it took a long time to get there. So
I imagine.
so, so flying into Iraq is a really interesting experience, as you're flying into Baghdad International Airport, and you can't just fly in the way the way you do at a here in the States or anywhere else. You know, it's not this gradual, you know, you're on glide path, you know, and it's this, you know, this calm and peaceful, oh, I've landed. No, it's not anything like that. When you're flying into Baghdad, the pilots are it's interesting. You're flying in, you get over the top of the airport, and you can't just fly straight in like normal, because you'll get RPG'd or you'll get shot at, or
What's
it's
RPG'd?
a rocket propelled grenade, and you get
That's all.
blown out of the sky.
Just a grenade.
So kind of a big deal. So the C-130 flies over the top of the drop zone, and in a rapid fashion, they just kind of do this spiral down into, I remember it correctly, uh, into the airport, and it's a rapid descent landing. Not not
Are
one
you
of the
buckled in
most
pretty well?
you're buckled in, but we've got all of this stuff in the back of the aircraft. The aircraft feels like it's gonna come apart. The pilots up front, it's like, is this, you know, these pilots, is this their first time doing this? Is this the rookie pilot, or do we
Okay.
have someone who's already done this, you know, maybe, I don't know, 1,000 times? Uh, so all of this is going through your mind. You're like, I'm not even gonna, at least dying in combat,
Yeah.
you know, it would be
So it crossed your mind you,
accepting,
you
know,
could die just trying to get to war.
just getting in there.
Yeah.
So I've never been so relieved as when that aircraft landed, and yeah, that's it was an emotional event. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who can say the same thing.
There's a lot of scary flights coming into. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can't just do the, oh, we're gonna land. Everybody put your tray tables up and
Yeah.
we're gonna nice stuff, cushiony.
No.
That was not your experience.
None of that. None of that.
Whew.
So we get into BIOP, and we have to stay. Tim and I have to stay there for 3 or 4 days, because we have to wait for a rotator aircraft to, because they have rotator flights that just go around the country, and those have to be scheduled and all that to take people where they need to go and things like that. So we were waiting for a rotator flight on a I believe it was a CH-47, and
Is that smaller?
it's a helicopter. It's one of the larger helicopters, the two propeller on top, and the one of the workhorses of the Army. And so we were there in BIOP, you know, and it was, you know, we're in the green zone, but we're also, it's right there. You know, you can hear it every
green
night.
zone is safe zone.
The green zone is the safe zone. That's
Is it just
essentially
stuff like yellow? Do they do yellow and red, or is it?
no, you know, green and red, you know, and then different shades indicate different things,
Oh, okay.
kind of like that. But we were right there, really close to the airport, daily, nightly. They were bringing medevac aircraft in, medevac helicopters in with soldiers that were hanging on, or they had already died. And it was a constant reminder of the lethality of the environment that you were in. I remember when we got to the airport and they drove us over in a bus, we had to sit there parked for a few minutes because they said that a Black Hawk was coming in and was transporting a potential casualty. And Tim and I, we were sitting on that side of the road, where we could actually watch this. And I'll never forget it, watching that aircraft come in. We had two guys that hopped off the aircraft. One of them immediately turned around and held the salute until the other guy, and then the guy in the back of the aircraft, they pulled the body bag off the aircraft, and he held his salute, while they were put him on the gurney and transported that casualty over. And I remember Tim reaching, looking up at me, and he was like, I think he said something like, "Welcome to the circus," or "Welcome to Baghdad," or
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I remember.
This is amazing. I just have so much compassion for everybody that's involved in these situations. It sounds so intense and hard. Was there ever a moment where you were like, why did I do this? Or were you really happy that you did it? Or are you feeling both things? Like, are you feeling a mixture of, I'm glad I did this, or why did I do this? I'm just wondering what's going on through your head while you're really seeing this.
That's a really good question. And at that time, I think that it had finally sunk in what I was getting ready to go do, like what this was going to actually entail. And so just preparing myself mentally for that, that's really what I spent a lot of time doing, and again, I was with a really good friend of mine who had been there, done that, seen the elephant, which you all might hear me say "see the elephant" several times. When I say seeing the elephant, means you have engaged and been engaged by the enemy. You've experienced what it's like to be in actual combat. So when I say "seen the
So
elephant,"
that's interesting.
and Tim had seen the elephant on multiple occasions. And so having him to be able to bounce things off of, to talk about with, it was, like I said, it was invaluable. It was truly invaluable. But that is also, it's important to note that is where my trust for someone other than the people I had gone through the Q course with. I had gone through with Tim, but he was in different phases at times. But I really started to build that friendship, understanding what a friendship was and how that could work in a combat situation, things like that, brotherhood type thing.
It seems like, knowing what you shared with us about your childhood, you really only had some family members, your adopted family. You really didn't have close friends until this point. So you're learning, oh, you can trust some of these men that are doing similar situations as you. And you're saying that was so important that you had figured that out.
Yeah.
Oh, you can trust these people because
Yes.
they're going to keep you alive and you're going to keep them alive.
Right.
So I'm thankful you got that lesson from them and
Right.
saw that, because humans are complicated and some humans hurt. Some
Yeah.
humans don't mean to hurt. Some humans care, and people mess up too. We're all human. We mess up.
Mhm.
So I'm so glad you had Tim on that plane and it was a positive experience, because it might have been one of the things that kept you alive. Just you learning to trust other people on these missions.
No doubt.
Yeah, this
No
is the
doubt.
fascinating.
You build a camaraderie and a brotherhood with the people you're with during training. But when you go to the actual environment that you are training to go to, and those people are there and you survive seeing the elephant, that is when that bond, that trust that has been meshed together through fire and tragedy and love and hate, that is the fibers that when you get to the end of the career, those fibers have become, you can't even see the sinew anymore. It's all one muscle. And when individuals in the military retire or leave that environment, that is ripped. That is
Right.
ripped away. And so that is what veterans deal with when they get out and they no longer have that support
Ooh.
system, and which is why it's so important for us to be able to support veterans, especially, we're coming out of the global war on terrorism, 20 plus years of war. There are people out there who have really built the muscle, and that when that gets ripped, that's a scar that needs to be worked back into a healing positive place.
Wow. Yeah, I can get that more. It just, when we get to the point where you come home,
Hmm.
I am starting to understand the difficulty in that. And
Right.
I just have so much compassion for the many
Mhm.
people that just, what a change.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're seeing, you're away from war, you're closer to it, you're seeing the effects, you're seeing people come and they haven't, some of them have died.
Hmm.
You're about ready to go in there. How long does it take before they put you in, and can you tell us where you went? And
Yeah. Tim and I actually ended up going to the same place, which was an absolute godsend, because we went from biop, and we went up north, uh, to a place that hadn't, it was still very much a hot area. There hadn't been any sort of uh, control
okay.
that had been really, somewhat. I mean, we did have a presence. We had a an airport, that we had taken over, and so it was very much going into the not knowing how this was being balanced up here just yet.
And that's a lot of what special forces do.
Hmm.
What my understanding,
Hmm.
you get there some of the earliest, you set up the thing so that the other people can come and regular war can happen. You're
Right.
starting the foundations of laying out the roadmaps to do that, right? So it makes
Right.
sense that you're telling me it's not 100% set up, it's partially.
Hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense with what special forces, what you all are doing.
Yeah, and it was also it was a large enough area that it was being occupied by by the regular army as well. So we did have a a relatively good perimeter built up, but it was still accessible. People were sneaking through and getting in, and I think a week before I got there, um, someone had walked in with a suicide vest on, and
Mhm.
blew themselves up inside the chow hall. So things like that. It
Wow.
wasn't as it
Did people
wasn't.
die?
Oh yeah, it
Oh my
wasn't quite
gosh.
as it wasn't as secure as it needed to be just yet. But that's
And
what we
did
were
you know
working
that when you
towards.
got there, that that had happened?
I found out when I got there. Yeah, because I mean, it was.
That's the other thing that I didn't even know how to say it because it's so painful. This is such a part of this war, these
Mhm.
suicide bombers. That's what we're watching the news, and you're like, another suicide bomber, and this many American soldiers died, and then another one. And so we're watching it on the news in horror as,
Mhm.
and you're there seeing it now.
Mhm.
Wow.
If I remember correctly, I believe it was a child, because at the time, that was, kids were able to get in and out of places at will almost,
That's
and
so
a lot of
sad.
them were helping in the chow hall and things like that. So, it was easy for an insurgent to strap a suicide vest to a 10-year-old or 11-year-old, and tell them to walk in there and click that button, or else their entire family's going to die.
I mean, this is what is in your head. These horrors we don't want to hear that happened, and
Mm-hmm.
they still continue to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying you don't want to get too far into them, and I get why.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Yeah.
I don't even know whether I can handle hearing all of it. I'm just so thankful that you made it, and I'm just so sorry. It's really sad that humans do things to other humans, but we know there's bad out there. We know this
Mm-hmm.
happens. Yeah.
That's the atrocities that men are capable of is truly baffling. It's truly baffling. And when you witness things like that, it just it starts to chip away at your humanity. It chips away slowly every time, another piece, another piece,
I
another
would think it
piece.
would make you cling to your fellow soldiers more because only they understand other people, your home life, your people, your family at home, everybody back home that they're not in it, they don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want them to get it, right? You're not going to like spend hours a day getting them to that place because that's a dark place to have to go to.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, compartmentalizing it, that's already
You
on the
have
plane
to.
coming home, things are getting locked away. And luckily, a lot of the people, whenever I did come home from that trip, a lot of the people were just, they were just so glad. Oh, thank God you're home. You're home. Yeah. And they didn't ask. There was very much
They're probably worried about your
we're
mental
just
state.
glad you're here, and we appreciate, everything that you've done. Okay. You're home. And so that it was a little easy. My wife at the time, she really didn't ask a whole lot. And but that was also because she had experienced an event while I was over there. It was quite traumatic,
Oh, I'm so
and
sorry.
it was really really unfortunate. But once I got to where I was going, and I was waiting for my ODA, my Operational Detachment Alpha, the Special Forces team, to come and pick me up. Three or four guys were, maybe it was all of them. They came in and picked me up about 3 or 4 days after I got to where I was at up north. And it just so happened that I had told my wife at the time. I told her, I was like, listen, I'm not going to be able to get a hold of you at all. We weren't in the day and age just yet where the cell phone was, people had them, but I didn't have a cell phone with me. And uh, I told her I'd let her know when I got to where it is that I was going. Got there, got her on the phone, was able to talk to her, and literally about 5 minutes into the conversation, we start getting mortared.
Oh my
And
goodness.
we are being attacked. And you hear over this loudspeaker, you hear attack, attack.
So she hears that on
So
the
she
phone.
hears that on the phone. She hears the mortars landing and blowing up in the background. And then she hears me say, I got to go. And I hang up the phone. So that was an event that she experienced that probably wasn't the greatest for encouraging her to support me doing what I was doing. Maybe just the opposite.
And maybe
Actually.
she didn't know how to handle the stresses of what you're going through, so she didn't ask, and then you didn't want to talk about it, so you didn't tell. I would think that would be very hard on a marriage.
Very, very hard. I mean, what do you do? What do you say? How do you? Well, it's you lock it away, and unfortunately, that communication breaks down, and that just continues to chip away at the relationship, chip away at it, and unfortunately, for her, that was a real tipping point. So
Wow.
so that and I'm not even with my team yet. That's on the bigger.
So you haven't left yet. You haven't met your fifth special forces guys,
yeah.
but you had to go. And what happened that day? I mean, can you just sum it up?
Yeah, it was luckily it was a brief attack. It was really more of just a sporadic, hey, we're still here. We know you're there. We have this. We're going to show you what we have, and then we're going to. So it wasn't a. It was too big of an area for them to attack and have any real effect. But just the occasional lobbing of a mortar in, 5 or 6 mortars in, just to let you know.
What is a mortar? What does that mean?
A mortar is to break it down just really simple. It's a it's a metal grenade that's about this big, or it could be this big, depending on which one they're shooting. And it's full of explosive, and whenever it hits, it's like a grenade that just completely blows up, and it destroys a lot of stuff.
Were people hurt in this one? Do you remember?
No, actually, in that attack, no one was injured. I mean, that didn't happen. So yeah, I hadn't even got to my guys. My team hadn't come to pick me up yet. I think it was 2 days later before they came to pick me up, and I was actually able to call my wife and say, "Hey, yeah, I'm getting ready to go out into where I'm going."
And you're probably not allowed to give many details either in case the phone call's compromised,
No,
right?
yeah.
So you had to be kind of vague, but you
Mhm.
let her know that you were okay and people are okay when the attack
Yeah.
thing came on the phone.
Yeah. It's okay. There's this misconception, and operational security is very important. Don't get me wrong, but there's this idea out there that anytime a military individual is going somewhere, it's got to be, oh, I can't tell you where I'm going, or yeah, I can't really talk about that. I'm like, well, it's it's kind of like, come on, man, you're going to Germany, or yes, I'm going to Iraq. All kinds of soldiers are going to Iraq. Now but Iraq is general. Yeah, huh, I'm going to Iraq.
So you're saying Iraq, you're just not saying the
I'm saying,
specific
yeah, I'm just going to,
place,
yeah, I'm in
specific town.
Iraq. Yeah,
That
specific
makes
areas,
sense.
towns where I'm at. There's that when you start dialing down the information, then that's when you could fall into a slippery slope of coughing up some information that maybe other people shouldn't hear about, but
Right.
they're
That makes
definitely
sense.
listening. So yeah, and it's really, it's kind of comical, when I'm at the airport and I'm going somewhere and I see a young soldier, in the uniform, and someone will go up to him and like, hey, thanks for your service, and blah blah blah. So are you getting, where are you are you getting ready to go somewhere? And they'll go, oh well, I just really can't talk about that. And I just kind of chuckle and it's like, oh yeah, all right. He's probably going to Georgia, so, but that's kind of comical. But no, uh, I didn't give her specifics of where I was at or what, anything like that. It just, that kind of information is need to know only, and she just doesn't need to know that specific information. So, and no one in my family or anything like that, I didn't say anything about that. So yeah, team comes and gets me. They take me out to the team house where we're located, and it's interesting. We're out there, and luckily we had a I believe it was the 82nd or the 101st squad, or maybe even a platoon, but they were our basically our combat outpost security. That's all they did, and that allowed us to run operations, do things 24/7. But
About how many people are on a mission to keep a base like that safe? Is it like 100 people, 20 people?
I think it was more like, it was probably about 20,
Oh wow.
probably 18 to 20, so not a platoon.
So it's not a huge amount of
Not
people
a huge
securing
amount
a
of
base.
people.
I did not know. This is interesting.
Yeah, and that's when you're out there in it, that's a 24/7 job. You know, people are on the on the wall, uh, and then the people that are going to replace them are sleeping, eating, doing the whole thing, waiting to get up and go get back on the wall. There's this constant switch out. So
And it's not like they're getting a full 8 hours of sleep.
no, you're not. I mean, we had a small gym. We had somewhat of a kitchen, and we had a local bring us food and things like that. But it's yeah, it's we had MREs, of course. You had, MREs for days,
Are those
meals
those
ready to
prepackaged
eat.
meals?
Yeah,
I
so
bet you didn't love those.
they got better over the course of my 20 years. They
Interesting.
definitely did. Uh, Chili Mac, oh, so good. But yeah, I guess we ended up getting there. My team picked me up. We got to the team house, and I was expecting there to be this, just immediately this, the hazing to begin. I expected it. I thought this is what's going to happen. And actually, the quite opposite happened, because I showed up not long after someone who was in the Q course with me. He had showed up about a week earlier, and so he was there, Matt, and they were like, "Listen, yeah, maybe that's what's going to happen on other teams, but that's not what's going to happen on this team. My team sergeant's telling me this. He's like, that's not what's going to happen here. You know, we don't have time for that. We need you how to keep us. We need to teach you how to keep us and yourself alive. You know, that is what's important. And everyone on the team had that mentality. Gee whiz, Dave, Bobby, Matt. Oh man, all those guys. Steve.
I'm sure it's almost painful to even think of them, because you probably want to like give them a hug and say hi to them now, right?
Well, I mean, it would be, it would be great. It would be great to see them, you know, Nick, golly, the names, you know, just coming back.
People you probably haven't thought of for a little while, and you're like, oh, what times we went through.
Yeah. But they all accepted me immediately, started training.
So you thought they were going to be, we better make him earn his spot. You were preparing for that. And instead they just immediately take you in, give you as much info, try to help keep you alive, train you. So that's really heartening to me. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. I was a weapons guy. And so the other weapons guy on the team, there were actually two teams, but only about half of each team was there. But he took me, Josie, if you're out there, buddy, I hope you're doing well. He took me under his wing and immediately just started telling me everything that I needed to know, you know, do this, do that, showing me the 50 cal on the gun, you know, and the turret and the Humvee, you know, how the Humvees worked, how it's hooked up, you know.
And they know what it's like. They know the
been
horrors that are out there, and they're like, let's keep you alive and you keep them alive. So their job is teach you as much as possible to protect the team. So it makes sense to me that they were like that. It makes sense to me that you didn't realize that was going to happen. And I'm just really grateful for them. I'm grateful that they didn't do the whole, let's have an ego and make him pay because he's a SF baby. They didn't do that. They were just like, we're a team. Let's do this. Yeah.
There wasn't time for that. They were more concerned about
this is life or death,
about survival.
Yeah. It makes sense. And I'm grateful for it.
It was Darren. I'm only using first names for obvious reasons.
Right.
Darren, Rick, the guys' names just keep coming back. And I just love those guys.
Oh my gosh, I would so love to have some of them on the show if they ever want to come on. I would love to hear what they thought of you, like their first impressions and just what it was like working with you, because you're doing a really good job of telling your side, but what was it like seeing you in action?
Yeah.
You also don't brag about yourself very much. So to have somebody else say, well, he did this and this and this and this would be cool.
Well, I think what's so great about it, that kind of community, is if you're screwing things up, you will know about it. You will hear about it.
Because you got to keep people alive. So if you're making a mistake, they're holding you accountable, right? And you're holding other people accountable because you're like, we don't want to die.
Well, not just with life or death things, but anything involved with training or things like that is, you know, you need to know how to do this and you need to know how to do it correctly. And it's not funny when you don't.
Right.
So you know, I can remember being on the range, you know, once we came back and we got a new guy that came to the team, and we had already kind of started to gel quite a bit together, and we were out on the range and just warming up with our pistols, you know, and he was throwing rounds outside the 10 ring, like not bad outside the 10 ring. I mean, it's still going to be lethal, but they need to be 10 ring hits. I mean, he was just kind of joking, and one of the other guys on the team was like, hey man, that's not funny. You know, if you're not putting it on the 10, you know, you're wrong. You know, and that was the mentality on that team. It was really important. You don't just do things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
At minimum, you know, that's not acceptable. And it was really special for me to get to be in an environment where if I was messing something up or I could be doing something better, I had a guy that would not only tell me, hey, you're screwing up, but let me show you how to fix this.
Yes.
You know,
sounds like you need both of those. You mess this up, here's how you fix it. So
I think a lot of people just like to tell you how you're screwing up, you know, but they don't tell you how you could fix it, or maybe they don't really care that you fix it because that keeps the limelight off of them. If there's someone over here doing it.
Well, it's a self-esteem thing. They're going to tell you you're messing up and they're not going to help improve or care, or maybe you're not even messing up, but they feel insecure watching you do something. So that's where it's like there's two types. There's just the judgment, they feel insecure, or there's the actual, no, you messed this up, here's how you fix it, let's get working on. I'm not going to make you feel bad, it's just fix it. That sounds like a lot healthier.
So that's the environment that we were in over there. And we that deployment was, it was a talk about feeding from the fire hose. It was, I learned so much. And even if there was a day that we weren't out doing something, which was really rare, because at that time, 2005, late 2005, they were gearing up for the first elections, the first Iraqi elections.
Oh, wow.
To, so that people were going to actually have a vote, for who they wanted.
I remember that in the news.
And so we were really busy with being out there and being on top of that, and also doing missions, so it was a nonstop. It didn't stop. It didn't seem like.
Okay, before we end, and we'll talk more about this time in Iraq next week, which I cannot wait for. What is your mental state? How are you handling this? So you are becoming friends with people. You are learning. You're given the tools. You're keeping your friends alive. They're keeping you alive. You're doing the work. What's going on in your head?
Well, I had a lot of things.
I would imagine
a lot was going on. One was I'm in a no-fail situation. I have to learn every single thing that's being taught to me by these guys, because if I don't, it could cost someone dearly. And so just constantly being in that sponge phase of really taking everything in of what was being told to me and putting it into practice, learn one, do one, teach one, and repeat. And so there was a lot of that. That was kind of my mind frame, but also, and I think maybe I'm not alone in this thought, but your first few deployments for me, it was like every bullet had your name on it. I was just I just like, okay.
So you had a mindset of maybe I'll get shot today.
Well, just the being in a combat zone where there is actual live fire happening, you're just the assumption of, oh, I'm going to die, because you've seen so many, the news does such a phenomenal job of showing everyone the horrors of life.
Right.
A+, great job, media, on that. But what they don't do is show the good that's coming out of it. That's
right.
That's not
it's
as
just
fun
the
to
action,
see.
The combat.
That's what garners attention. So going into that for soldiers during that time period, the media had done a really good job of showing them this is what's going to happen, and this is where you're going. This is what's probably going to happen. And so going into that situation, you're thinking, oh, wow, I've already seen one person in a body bag come off the back of an aircraft. And well, I guess it's probably just going to happen to me. And for some guys, it did happen to them. They graduated the Q course. They went to their group. They went to their team in Iraq. And 2 months later, they were dead. First deployment, this brand new Green Beret. And that was happening. That was the situation. And so the mindset of thinking.
So you very quickly went there. You told me when we first met that you got to that place where you didn't think you were going to survive, but very quickly you got there thinking that mindset. And I just think that was really hard on your body. Like you're so high anxiety, almost 24/7 in this environment. And then you're put so much pressure on yourself to soak up all of the information, because that piece of information might keep you alive. This piece of information might keep your friend alive. This information might keep the base safe or whatever. So just what you put your body through is incredible to me to realize. You're only human, but you are doing things that seem superhuman. And that's why we look at you and we're so thankful. We look at how strong you are and we're just so like, wow, he's superhuman, but you're not. You're human and you did superhuman things with repercussions, right? Like like this takes a toll after a while.
It starts to take its toll, and it did take it, later on down the line, it did start taking its toll, and there's, I know that there's this perception, this idea of, you know, Green Berets, Navy SEALs, Delta, Team Six. It's like these guys are like mystical
Right,
ninjas. Like,
right.
wow.
You're fascinating. Yes.
But at the end of the day, we're just ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
Right.
And that's what people do everywhere. People do that as teachers, as bankers, as pastors. That, yeah.
Yes, but you got to
We're
give
all
yourself more
ordinary.
credit. You're
No,
doing things
no, I don't.
thinking you might not
No,
survive
I
them,
don't
though.
want to do that because
I get
it's
why
more
you
important
don't.
for me. It's more
Right, right, right.
important to it's more important to explain the 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 human aspect
Right, right, right.
of where I'm at and what's going on. And it's challenging. It is very challenging, but it's so important to maintain the being an ordinary person capable of accomplishing
Extraordinary
very
things.
extraordinary things because of because of dedication, because of a lot of
The
different
training, the other
training,
people, the organization.
primarily the people around you.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to work in a place where everyone else around me was stronger. They were faster. They could shoot straighter. They were just every single day I got to be around people that I aspired to be like, so which was awesome. It was amazing.
You also have a trait that's very admirable and shows why you were able to make it to this top performance. You're humble. You're humble. And I really appreciate that about you. You aren't every day getting up bragging about all the stuff that you accomplished. It's hard for me to get it out of you. And you're always so thankful of everybody else that helped you. And I just really like that. I really like that trait that you have. I want you to also accept how much you did. You did it for our country, and I am so thankful for that. And I think you do to some extent.
I do. No, I do.
I think you have a pretty healthy amount. I just want to acknowledge that humbleness is a really wonderful quality. And I see it in like Tim Peck. I see it in other people too. They're not just getting up there bragging about themselves. And like with Tim, it's like, no, Tim, you need to brag about yourself so people realize, so they want to vote for you. And it's like, but he doesn't want to. But then I meet people that are quite willing to say how amazing they are. And I'm like, wait a minute, are they? Yeah. And I just want to acknowledge that and say that it's a really wonderful quality. Okay, so we'll go ahead and end it now. And we'll talk more about your time in Iraq next week, I would imagine.
Yeah, we'll finish up with that. It's basically coming to an end, and we'll move into coming home and actually being at the group area and starting that whole process of training and things like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to hear more. I thank you so much for being open and honest and sharing your story and what it was like for you. Thank you for everybody that helped my friend Brian stay alive during this time. I'm so thankful for that. Thank you to all of our troops that are out there now protecting our country and our freedom. I sure have been learning a lot these last few months and have just so much more appreciation. I've also been meeting more veterans out here in Harrison County because I'll go up and speak to them and just let them know how much I appreciate them. I met one and talked about your show, and he gave me his phone. He's a Vietnam vet, and he was already following our show.
Oh, great.
And I just thought that was really wonderful. I hope that you are helping the millions of veterans out there around the country and the world, because you did do something very unique and special and horrifying. So we'll do this again next Monday. Tomorrow I have a show with Sam Cooper, who's getting involved in politics to try to help, especially with our healthcare system. So he has a big announcement tomorrow on Get the Word Out show. That's at 11. And then I'm interviewing on Wednesday at noon a Republican police officer who is running for sheriff in Floyd County. And so that's Jason Kerberg. And we're going to talk about mental health and being a cop and how to unite our community, because there's a lot of fear. There's fear for cops and there's fear for people on the other side. And if we can unite that some and have open, honest conversations about policing in Indiana, hopefully we can make this place safer for all of us. So that's my goal there with that show. So I'm really excited to have Jason on Wednesday. So those are the shows.
That'll be a
So
great
far.
show. That'll be a really good show.
I'm really excited
I'm
about
excited to see that too.
I think Jason's pretty brave to come on because people hear fake things about me since I run as a Democrat. They're all scared of the D. And I'm like, I'm just a person that wants to unite the community. I promise I'm not scary, right? Am I scary?
I'm not scared. I'm not scared.
I don't, well, I mean, I don't know how much
You're
that
not
helps.
scary.
I don't think you're going to be scared of me.
You're not scary.
Yeah, I'm not scary Republicans. So I just want to care. I just care about the community. So I'm really excited for Jason to come on, do this show. And he's a little nervous. And I'm like, don't worry, because it is a live show. Thousands of
It's
people
live.
do watch it.
They're out there.
Yeah. And then if you like our shows and you want to go back and see more, YouTube is the easiest way. So just type in Project Next, or you can type in one word Project Next Movement for our YouTube channel. You can go to playlists. You can go to Brian's show, The Roundtable, and easily see all of his shows. We started our first show on mental fitness. So you can go through mental fitness and find the first thing where he kind of sums up his whole life. But YouTube is a really great place to see all of our shows. Facebook is good for the new shows, but after a month, they delete them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Go to
yeah.
YouTube.
So YouTube is great. So please subscribe. Just look up Project Next on there, subscribe, and then look at the playlists, and you'll find your shows that you like the best, because there's lots of different ones. I'm also doing live on location shows.
Yeah.
So yesterday I did one when I was at the Commons in Columbus. My husband was like, there aren't very many people here. You should do a live. I was like, oh, great idea. So that
Yeah,
was fun because it's
that's
like a
good.
free playground in Columbus that people might not know about.
Mhm.
We stop there almost every time we go to Indy, which we go to
Yeah.
Indy a lot. So
Yeah.
that's been fun to do that. And when I met a pride group,
Mhm.
the Washington County Pride group, I love those people. I did a live with that. So I'm just having
Yeah.
fun with the live shows, but they're kind of like sporadic. Like, here's I'm at this place. So I have a playlist for the live shows now. So
Awesome.
anyway, and we're on all the things. We're on Twitch and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and X and Blue Sky. Yeah.
What's
When
that?
I have
I don't
time.
know what
Blue Sky is the guy that started Twitter,
Oh.
because you know how.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So now that's a different version of
I can't
Twitter.
keep up with all this.
I can't either, and I need to get on Threads, but I'm not on that one yet. There's so many. There's only one of me. I need some help with the social media. Yeah. You guys have a fantastic rest of your week, and thank you, Brian.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Stop in
Appreciate
at Zimmerman art class if you're in Corden.
Yeah.
You can see Brian, you can talk to him, and you can buy some beautiful glass work, homemade, special, family-owned business. I love the place. It's like an art museum. When I come
Yeah.
here, it makes my eyes happy.
Yeah.
So you can actually come and see him in Corden if you live around here. That's fun.
Yeah.
And meet the
Come on in and
family.
see us.
Meet the amazing
Come meet
family.
everyone.
Yeah,
Solve all the world problems in here on a daily basis.
the
on down.
the hard artwork, the heat, the intense stuff of making the art glass is really cool. We got to do a show about it. We'll do it
Yeah.
when we can plan it. We're just busy. But anyway, bye everybody. Love
See
you
ya.
guys.